Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Instrumentation Sync on the 17th of October for three of us, I think. No, four of us. For one of us, it's actually the 18th already, right? This is confusing. All right, so we have a bunch of topics to get through. I wanted to just quickly start with reminding everyone about the talent assessment. You should have gotten emails from Workday reminding you about talent assessment. As far as I know, and as far as it's documented, this first step of the talent assessment, everyone's self-evaluation, has time until Wednesday next week, the 25th. It's a bit different than last year. I don't know if anyone checked already the schedule, but last year, manager evaluations and self-evaluations. So when your manager evaluated you and then you evaluate yourself happened at the same time. This year, they changed it so that the self-evaluation happens before the manager evaluation. There's also, I linked the overall schedule. So again, like last year, this is a multi-month process where we first go through the evaluations, then there's going to be a calibration session, and then the final assessments are going to be communicated beginning of next year, so in January 2024. Does anyone have any questions around the process? I think everyone here is eligible for the process. Okay. I don't know if you had time yet. Tanuja linked the recording for the 16.6 milestone priorities product list. Does anyone have any questions towards that? I can quickly go through the milestone, the maintenance part. Yeah.
I was the one I was most unsure about how we would go about is the spike on building UI.
Mm-hmm.
It's already estimated at 8 points, or a weight of 8, and I just wonder how we're gonna do that. I honestly didn't look into the issue, but I was more like, are we gonna make like a prototype and present it, and or is it kind of like sketches or like working prototype, or yeah?
I think if I remember correctly, the issue doesn't completely define it yet, which is the goal is to figure it out together with users. The idea would be to the initial idea that we put there, I think, is to create a web-biased UI that could be in the metrics at metrics.gitlab.com, but it could also be like a separate thing, and create a UI-based generator that provides the contents of a configuration file, like the actual content that you normally have that normally gets created for the event definition, for the metric definition, and the API calls. So no downloading yet, no automatic creation or anything like that of the files. The focus would really be on the UI, where you have to answer the questions that the generator asks you, or somehow kind of configure so that the outcome can be a metric definition and an event definition. That was the idea. It's written down as a comment inside the issue, but this is also open to further ideas. So this is really about exploring it further. It's estimated as an 8 because that's our default estimation for spikes when there's no kind of clear outcome yet.
Yeah. I was just wondering if when we did the initial work on internal events, Nikolai and I did those on your suggestion, Basti, but we did this thing where we kind of came up, like we sketched solutions. I don't remember what you called the framework. Like each of us would sketch a solution and then kind of take the parts we like the most from the different solutions, something like that. I'm just a little I'm a little worried that this too quick. We invest too much into the technical part of building the UI in order to get feedback. Or yeah, I don't know. That's just a concern.
So your suggestion would be to focus on creating like a sketch or click prototype and then test that with users?
Something like that. But it might also just be because I'm very slow at building anything UI related. So that could also be, I mean, maybe Ankit can just throw something together in no time and get feedback on it. And that might be better, but I just know that if I had to like come up with a concept and then implement it, we're probably kind of past the budget already.
Yeah, that's understandable. But my own, so I think we can definitely open this up for discussion, and I think it would be good to add this feedback also to the issue, where the suggestion around how we do that is also documented, or there's this comment in the issue around the desired outcome, my suggestion for the desired outcome. Please feel free to provide that there. My personal experience as a former front-end engineer, like long time ago, was that I think if you're not a designer by craft, then it's a lot easier oftentimes to actually build something working and kind of fiddle around with it inside the browser rather than coming up with sketches, and you get better feedback normally if it's actually interactive and kind of like you can, in our case, for example, if you can actually click through it, actually kind of, I don't know, tell someone that wants to create a metric, hey, please, can you quickly use that thing? Rather than having them like having to come up with some kind of dream scenario that you have to tell someone that they then clicked through, which is kind of like this artificial setting. If you have something that actually works, I think the feedback is a lot better. That's my own personal experience. But I think in this case, I mean, because this is clearly something that Ankit would need to tackle, I think his feedback would also be good. And that's, I think it would be worth it to note down your concern.
Yeah.
Okay, then if there's no other questions regarding the features, I can quickly share my screen and we can go through the maintenance list as well. If any questions arise towards the features or the maintenance items, feel free to ask them still. Can you see my browser? Okay. So Nurja already went through the product features. Regarding the maintenance list, there's also quite a bit of carryover that we have from last milestone. There's actually, I forgot to update this, there's actually one more issue we need to do before we can update the next version for the metric dictionary. This is a long time problem that our metric dictionary is very outdated when it comes to its libraries, that we finally need to get done, because otherwise there's multiple things that we want to do potentially on the metric dictionary, not the least make it more fitting for internal events, which are currently not really documented there, still referred to as snowplow events, but all the changes we make there, or if we add things or anything like that, would be good to have updated libraries beforehand so that we don't create more, like that we don't dig ourselves into a hole even more than we're already in when it comes to that. We have a few more migrations from usagedata.rb, still an ongoing effort. We got informed that another of our projects is also not really up to date. That's the version app. So the outcome of some security scans was that there's quite a few potential vulnerabilities in libraries that we're using currently. So we have to upgrade the version app Rails gems to stay in line with the security scanning. A next step would then be probably next milestone to add something like Dependabot to actually kind of automatically always upgrade libraries in version app. But before we can do that, we actually need to make sure that we are at least somewhat up to date and not completely behind. Apart from that, we have some more guidance on how to test product analytics instrumentation modifications for with the local GDK. When we do changes, update our testing structure for the analytics configurator. So you see there's currently 2 testing related issues for the analytics configurator. One is to have end-to-end tests for database migrations, specifically because ClickHouse Cloud is running differently than local ClickHouse. And so we need to make sure that migrations actually run on ClickHouse Cloud. We also want to make sure that we can actually run unit tests for ClickHouse against ClickHouse related functionality, which is currently not possible. We want to add changelog generation to the Ruby SDK. Currently, we have to manually write changelogs when we want to update the SDK. And it's now officially used in multiple projects. So the chance that we will create new versions down the line becomes higher and higher. And lastly, there's a small refactoring issue regarding the metrics dictionary to make it a bit more usable. And we have also 2 bugs. One of them is that Snowplow is not cleaning up the local storage. We need to investigate this a bit further. This actually led to someone blocked Snowplow, and then Snowplow just accumulated loads and loads of events in their local storage, up to the point that their local storage, like your local storage in the browser, has some kind of limit. And this got so high that local storage did not work for them anymore. The other bug issue is that an analytics instrumentation review did not get triggered for someone instrumenting a I think no Snowplow event in this case, and normally we should be triggered for that. We have some assumptions why DangerBot didn't ask us to review this, but there's no 100% solution yet. Any questions regarding the maintenance items? Okay. As always, this is an ambitious target to get all of this done. Oh, yeah.
I have a question. This thing with the local storage, but we talked to Basti and I. We talked about the problem that most ad blockers block Snowplow not too long ago. So wouldn't this happen for quite a few? Like, why are we only seeing it now? Is it is that just because it's only reported now, or do you have any idea about that?
That's part of the investigation. So right now, it's not 100% clear if this is something that is actually happening for more people. I mean, I'm also not 100% sure how local storage is otherwise being used. So one developer already encountered it locally, and they did some exploration around why is their local storage so full. That's what led to the report. But part of this issue is kind of to investigate it further and figure out, is this actually happening for more people? Is this something that's kind of somehow related to their specific setup? and maybe they have some configuration that makes this happen apart from just snowplow blocking, because the same reaction that you had, we also had, was kind of, okay, normally this why are we only hearing about this now? Because snowplow is on a few blocking lists, and so it's not something that someone would normally configure manually.
All right, that sounds like could be pretty hairy to get to understand that. But okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, but the impact is potentially quite big if it's actually happening for more people. So we at least need to make sure that it's not happening. All right, then. Any more questions? Okay, I think we have a discussion that we wanted to already talk about last week, but didn't have the time. So we recently had a few priority 1, severity 1 bug issues that were not yet kind of on an incident level. So like all hands on deck, do not do anything else. We need to only fix this, but still problematic. The official priority 1 timeline for resolution for a bug is, I think, 30 days. So we stayed within that timeline for resolution, but it still felt like we could have reacted quicker. And the question that arose for me is, should we create more urgency around bugs like this? Do we feel that's like counterproductive to the GitLab ethos? Should we just get more comfortable with having the bugs linger longer? So the issue is most of the time is that reviews take a bit longer. So if everything stays within the normal GitLab cycle of it takes, I don't know, 24 hours to get a review, and then another 24 hours until you react, and so on. So there's multiple days that go by while a bug lingers when we stay within that. Whereas in theory, we could create more urgency by handing over things quickly, using Slack more offensively. Does someone want to voice for Michał?
Yeah, sure. Michał Rhodes. I think what could help with creating this sense of urgency would be having a message on our channel informing about the top priority of some issue, so that all team members know about it, and maybe we can even already assign the roles of code developers / reviewers. I think this has worked well earlier this year when we were working on registration features with Piotr. Yeah, I think I agree. I think we should just get a little more traffic about the issue on the Slack channel. That would certainly help. I think just reminding us and creating a sense of urgency would be quite enough, because for us sometimes these bug issues can result in data loss from metrics or events, and the longer this takes, like the longer the gap becomes. So I think that's pretty important. Michał also wrote, as for deciding whether there is a need for raising priority for such issues, I would say it depends on how close we were to the max P1 resolution time on this one. If we were very close to it, there probably is a need. How close we were actually to the deadline?
Not that close, but again, P1 is 30 days for a bug, which I can't understand in the grand scheme of GitLab user-facing bugs where there might be more of them. But yeah, I don't know, for us specifically, letting a bug linger for 30 days feels like a potential P1 bug linger for 30 days feels quite long. So if we would wait for that, then there's definitely no need to use Slack, because 30 days we can definitely manage just with GitLab async work.
I think also this, I actually didn't look at the link issue here, but the one I was thinking about, we had this issue, this bug where we wouldn't register any internal events from the front end in production, right? I think if we let that sit for 30 days, we have failed. If we let that sit on SaaS for 30 days, I mean, we might be within our SLA, but I think anybody would be in their right to question what we are doing over here if we prioritize like that. So I think I think it was not so bad, but I would have I would have liked we have kind of gotten it out a little quicker with by structuring the reviews. I think also initially it took a little while before we actually picked up on the severity of this issue. So I guess that's kind of two sides. Like if you kind of say, okay, the implementation kind of takes the time the implementation takes, but then also when do we start working on it, and on the other side, the review part.
We could try to make a distinction between bugs that affects data quality, and these should be prioritized and done as soon as possible. And if not, then it depends, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, but then the overall consensus is that to create this sense of urgency, we just use Slack more offensively for those P1 issues. I think that's something that definitely I could do more offensively, but then also if you're working on one of those, I think you should, like, everyone should feel more comfortable or also asked to actually reach out on Slack to make sure that reviews, etc., are handled early, and that we make. I mean, by now we also have a bunch of maintainers in the group, so it's not too hard to get something into review and then actually into maintainer review and like into production fast if we want to, if there's a certain urgency behind fixing it.
Without Slack communication, it's quite difficult to pick up urgency, because this issue I picked, I checked as an example, I checked the issue and there was no indication of urgency, and I pinged Ankit, and he probably also had a look, and okay, I'll just start working on it slowly, right? And he probably created a merge request and was completely working on merge request. I'm just also saying how it's happening usually in my case. There is not much reason to check issues. There is no comments coming, right? To come and pick up and have a look at the labels. And since urgency added later or something like that, you probably don't even know that it's happening unless it's communicated like a pin clearly. Of course, if it's created as P1, everybody will start to work on it and probably pass to each other like we do often with Basti. Like when his day finishes, he's passing me, for example, something urgent, and I work, and then I'm passing him back out to anyone else. And we usually resolve such bugs very quickly. Yeah. But without, conclusion to this long speech, it's just, the only way I think to communicate through Slack. So everybody is also aware, because people going on day off and sick leave or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, but then I think let's just try this. I think that's something
I would
also yeah.
I just wanted to comment that I think it can, for issues like this, it can be helpful to get feedback early on. So, I mean, sometimes we have overlapping work hours, and if somebody is available, it might make sense to have a sync call, even as we uncover the issue, or as soon as we kind of figure out, okay, this is really bad, then get somebody on a call, explain it, kind of verify this, like get some kind of confirmation that, yeah, I agree, this sounds like this is a good solution for that. Yeah, I think I'm very open to that if I'm available. I think also if I had the option to do that with some of you, I think it would also make it move quicker if I was kind of working on something. It's also kind of easier to pick it up and review then.
Yeah,
but it's not very GitLab like.
Yeah, but I think I agree completely for those kinds of issues. The hard part, at least in my experience now, within the last year, is always kind of to actually move out of the GitLab way, because we were getting so used to kind of the way it normally works to kind of then actually make the step. But I also don't know any better solution than just like hereby everyone knows that we should be doing that more if the issue is a P1. I'm going to try to make that communicate that more openly inside of our Slack channel and remind people more aggressively in via sync pings. But I think that's then also up to all of us to do that. And actually, when you work on an issue like this, to try to involve people, for example, from other time zones early to be able to hand it over. Maybe do pair programming to make reviews go faster, and like do all these sync things in those cases that normally aren't done as much.
I know we're talking a little bit like broadly here, but in reviewing the issue that's linked, the P1 S1, something I'm maybe confused about or noticing, I don't really know, is it seems like this did get like picked up and fixes merged pretty quickly. It's just that like the fixes that got merged didn't fix it all the way. And then that's when it lulled. Is that an accurate
I think that's in the specific case, it's accurate for the first fixes. We had some, the final ones then took a bit longer. Because I think the first fixes were just, if I remember correctly, were just like tiny issues where it's like we thought configuration is wrong or something like that. And then only later we discovered, unfortunately, only a lot later we discovered that the whole front-end tracking wasn't working correctly. And that then took a bit longer to actually work through and took multiple days of reviewing. But you're right, the initially we did it quickly. Yeah.
So then I wonder if rather than an urgency, like sense of urgency we need to increase, if we should be thinking about our team's like verification processes or mandatoriness of them. Because like testing is the thing here. Because this would have sat a lot less time with good testing, right? Wrong? I don't know. I wasn't part of the conversation. It's just a
Yeah, I think this actually also led to a follow-up issue on adding end-to-end testing, because we don't have that. So I think even the most basic end-to-end test would have caught this, because it was basically the whole thing didn't work. So we didn't, like, as soon as we add end-to-end test, we won't have this specific issue again. So
okay, super.
yeah.
And that stuff is already scheduled for this milestone, isn't it? Yeah.
No, that's for another part of our like sprawling
Okay.
universe of services. Mainly because there was probably like half a year ago, there was already an initiative from quality side when we still had a dedicated, before the reduction in force, we still had a dedicated testing engineer who made some initial investigations into doing end-to-end testing for snowplow and so on, to actually set up the whole event sending structure to be able to test it end-to-end. And that took multiple months and didn't get implemented in the end. So that's a bit of the hesitation here. I mean, we're still working on getting getting more testing help also, because this is unfortunately not, there's unit tests and so on everywhere, but this isn't caught by them, or wasn't caught by them, because it's much more kind of, okay, the system didn't work together. Like when this things got sent to the front end, it was different than the backend expected. And it's definitely something we need to solve in the long run. Unfortunately, in this case, in this specific case, I think it's a pretty gnarly issue to set it up. Fortunately, there's another team also now, the growth team, that is also doing some investigations into that direction. So we might be able to piggyback on that, because they also want to test some specific use cases for them. And are investigating in setting up Snowplow again inside the quality environment, so that they are able to actually do that. That's the big problem, to kind of actually set up the infrastructure that you need in some way.
Yeah, I have really high hopes on it, because this is pretty difficult to test otherwise. This should clearly be an end-to-end test.
Yeah. So kind of all that being said, completely agreed with you, Sarah, that I think there's multiple parts we can optimize on. One of is that, okay, how quickly can we fix things? Because definitely the second part of the fixes didn't get as implemented or then through the whole pipeline as quickly as it could have. So for example, in one case, something took then, I don't know, 2-3 days to review, and then slipped into the next week, which in our case oftentimes means that when something is connected to service ping, which always gets just run every Sunday or Monday morning, you have to wait another week to actually completely verify in production that this is working, because this is so expensive to run for all the metrics. There's no other way to kind of make 100 or 1,000% sure that it's working. And then if it slips a week, you have to wait a complete week to do this verification, which is quite bad. All right, we have one more broad question, because we're already a bit over time. That Jonas said, should we quickly maybe go through it, because I think it still shouldn't take that long, right? So
yeah, I'll do it quick. No, it's just I was looking at this today, where we where we create the service ping for snowplow events and a service ping context, and we're setting data source to Redis HLL, and I was like, wait a second, that seems wrong, because yeah, that seems like an old thing. And then I asked Basti if he knew what we needed for, and he didn't, and Miles is not using it. And so can I just throw this thing out, or should we put it in the shit and keep it? That was the question.
Yeah, I thought about this really hard today, and we don't do anything with it. We just send it off in the context. So if Miles has no use for it, then I don't think that's needed anymore, I think.
yeah, I mean, I remember that he has these different data warehouse modeling built based on whether it's a all-time count or monthly unique count or something metric, but I guess this is using the actual YAML files rather than the information that we're sending with the context.
Yeah, I think he's going through, like, going from the event name to the metric definition, or finding the event name in the metric definition, and then using, kind of switching based on the data source and the metric definition now.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely redundant data or kind of denormalized data, like that. He should be able, even if he were using it, he should be able to kind of just infer it based on the on the event.
I think I'll also remove it then, because now we will have like several different data sources. So I'll just remove it from the snowplow events. Sorry, from the internal events. Well, I guess I can remove it from everything. Oh well, if that's not used. Also,
I mean, that's then a question of effort. I think you have to check whether the service ping context requires it. So if you have to update the service ping context because of that.
Yeah.
And then I don't think there's any reason then to go through the other places where it's used and update it there. I like updating it in internal events definitely makes sense, but the other places probably is just that I would just leave them, because we're gonna migrate those over time anyway. So kind of potentially breaking tests or whatever is probably not worth like the time investment right now.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Right. Sorry, it took a bit longer than originally planned. But other than that, are there any final questions, or should we call it a day? Then let's stop. Everything, either have a good night or a good rest of your day. And see you soon again.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. See ya.